I almost didn't go to the party. My husband's side of the family liked their gatherings big, caterers, rented tents, waiters carrying trays like it was a small wedding instead of a cousin's birthday. I always felt like an extra piece of furniture in those spaces. Polite, tolerated, slightly out of place. Being a nurse didn't exactly raise my standing there. I told myself it didn't matter. I worked long shifts, paid my bills, raised my daughter. That should have been enough. My daughter, Lena, was 7. She'd been excited all week because she loved parties. Balloons and cake were still magical to her. When we arrived, the yard was already loud with music and children running everywhere. Adults gathered in small polished circles, talking about schools, vacations, promotions, conversations that always seemed to orbit money without ever saying the word. At first everything seemed normal. Lena ran off with the other kids while I found a chair near the patio and accepted a glass of lemonade from one of the servers. 20 minutes passed before I noticed something was wrong. She wasn't playing anymore. She was sitting alone on a cheap plastic chair near the catering table, her small hands folded in her lap. Behind her were several large black trash bags tied shut beside a metal bin. At first I thought she had wandered there accidentally. Then I heard the laughter. A group of children stood a few yards away, whispering loudly enough to be heard. "That's her spot. My mom said she's poor. And her mom is just a nurse." They said it with the casual cruelty only children have when they're repeating things they've heard adults say. One boy pointed toward the trash bags. "That's where she belongs." The other kids giggled. My stomach tightened so suddenly I had to grip the arm of the chair. For a moment I just sat there. I wanted to storm over. I wanted to drag every adult in that yard into the same uncomfortable silence I was feeling. But anger would have turned it into a spectacle. And I could already imagine the excuses. Kids being kids. Just a joke. Don't take it so seriously. Instead, I walked over calmly. Lena looked up at me with a careful expression, like she was trying to decide if she had done something wrong. I took her hand. "Come sit with me." She didn't ask questions. She just followed. Back at the patio, the conversations continued as if nothing had happened. A few relatives smiled politely when they saw me, but I noticed the glances drifting toward my uniform bag by the chair. I had come straight from a shift. Someone nearby was already telling the story. Apparently the children had invented a game. Something about pretending certain people had to sit in different places depending on their jobs. There was laughter when the punchline came. The nurse had to sit by the trash. The adults laughed too, not loudly, but enough. Then the grandmother arrived. Everyone noticed. My husband's grandmother carried her authority quietly, but it filled every room she entered. She was the one person in the family whose opinion could rearrange the atmosphere without raising her voice. People stood straighter. Conversation softened. She moved slowly through the yard, greeting relatives, accepting small bows of respect that weren't quite formal but clearly expected. When she reached our table, her eyes paused on Lena sitting close to me. My daughter had gone very quiet. The grandmother frowned slightly. Why was the child sitting by the garbage earlier? The question landed heavier than it sounded. Someone tried to laugh. "Oh, the kids were playing some silly game." She raised one hand, not sharply, just enough to stop the sentence. "What game?" No one answered immediately. Across the yard, one of the children spoke up before any adult could stop him. "We made her sit there because her mom is poor." A few adults closed their eyes briefly. The boy kept going. "And because nurses clean gross stuff." The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. The grandmother looked around the patio slowly. Then she spoke. "I see." Her voice wasn't angry. It was worse than angry. It was clear. "You know," she said calmly, "when your grandfather was dying, the person who treated him with the most dignity was a nurse." No one moved. "And when I eventually need care," she continued, "I would prefer someone with skill and character. Not someone who measures people by status." Her gaze settled on me. There was something deliberate about the way she spoke next. "I asked her last month to consult privately on my medical arrangements," she said to the group. "She declined because she didn't want special treatment from family." Several heads turned toward me, surprised. The grandmother folded her hands together. I will be asking again. The shift in the yard was almost physical. Faces that had been amused earlier now looked pale and stiff. Because everyone there understood something unspoken, the grandmother controlled a great deal of influence in that family, and she had just placed her trust publicly in the person they had mocked. I didn't smile. I didn't say anything. I just nodded once. After a while, Lena leaned against my arm. Later we left quietly, before the cake was even cut. In the car, she stared out the window for a long time. Finally she asked, very softly, "Why did they say those things about you?" I thought about the yard, the laughter, the sudden silence after the grandmother spoke. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "people think money tells them who matters." She looked down at her hands. "Does it?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "But some people take a long time to learn that."